One of the big issues that came up was the issue of choice. So who should choose whether to use a genetic technology? Should that choice belong to the parents? Should laws be passed to regulate how these technologies are used? So that was really one of the biggest issues. Who chooses when and how to use these technologies? I think that when you look at history, you find out that every age is a turning point, okay? But I think that what's unique about our age is really twofold. First, we have computation technology that's essentially allowing us to digitize everything. And that's really new. We can digitize music, text, video, even information from and about the human body. So really, for the first time in history, everything in the physical world around us can be turned into a string of numbers and analyzed, and stuff can be done with that information. So that's really new. That is not a capability that we have had earlier in human history. And I think that a lot of the debates and issues we have are about the fact that everything is data. And because it's data, it is infinitely malleable. So we can gather information, for example, about a person's genome and decode large portions of it. And that allows us to know things about them that we couldn't have otherwise. And that information can be very easily shared. So with insurance companies, for example, in the old days, okay, and by old days I mean the 1980s, okay, if you had information, replicating it and moving it around was a laborious affair. And it was very easy to control information. So with music, for example, it was very easy to control the physical medium of how music was transmitted. You had to buy the record to get the music. Or you had to tune into a radio show to get the music. Now music is infinitely malleable. It can be sent to anywhere. And so that overturned the music industry. So we are seeing digital changes like that at an incredible pace in almost every aspect of daily life. The other way in which I think we are in a unique moment in history is that we're getting a lot more information about the workings of our bodies than we used to. So medicine, for example, again, in the old days, by which I mean maybe the 1950s, doctors really could not do very much for severe diseases. They could really just help the patient either get well on their own or die. I'm oversimplifying, okay? So it was possible to cure appendicitis. But now we have such intimate knowledge of the human genome that we are able to understand the root causes of disease in a way that we were not able to before. And when you understand something, when you control it, you then have the ethical question of what do you do with that information. If you can't control something, you don't have any ethical issues. When you can control something, then you do have an ethical issue. So because we have that increasing degree of control over what we can know about our bodies and what we can do with our bodies, the ethical questions are multiplying in a way they really have not before. I think it's a mistake to talk about women as a homogeneous group, because they're not, right? I mean, if you think about it for 2 seconds, you realize that two women are more different from each other than women generally are from men. So it's just a mistake to say, should women do X or women do Y? That's just the wrong question. I think a more interesting question is, what are the strengths that many women have that have not been fully recognized in our society, and what can we do to bring out those strengths? Now, that's also a tricky question because, again, women are infinitely different from each other. So it's a mistake to talk about women being, say, more nurturing, because there are plenty of women who aren't nurturing, okay? But that said, it's difficult to answer the question without essentializing. So really, I would say any group that decides it wants to make a difference, no matter what that group is, can make a difference if they act in concert. And I would say that is the crucial thing to do. That's a good question. I think very recently in the United States history, okay, and I'm well aware that I'm talking in France, we have really seen how powerfully very small groups can influence a national debate. So the Tea Party on the right really has profoundly changed American politics in ways that nobody predicted they would be able to do a year ago or 2 years ago. And so I think that a lot of people have really taken a lesson from that a very small number of people with the right megaphone, so to speak, can make a big difference. So I think that we are beginning to see a progressive movement in that direction, a counterbalance to what I consider very regressive and anti-intellectual policies. So I think it is starting with things like Occupy Wall Street in the United States, where a small but vocal progressive majority can speak out vigorously for important issues like human rights, a humane economy, more democratic control of governance. These are all problems that the United States is really having because I think it has lost sight of many of its core democratic values, particularly because we are seeing an increasing concentration of wealth in the hands of a very, very small number of people. Now, there's always been rich, there's always been poor, but this disparity between the poor and the middle class and the rich has never been greater in American history, and I think in world history, than it has been now. And that is producing all sorts of serious problems in the United States and in many other parts of the world. So I think that an important part of the agenda, the important next steps, is to be a powerful voice for progressive values, for increasing autonomy over oneself, the decisions that one can make, better and fairer distribution of wealth, and a more open and responsive democratic government. These are important things that need to be done to move the agenda forward.